Hello friends, in today's video I am reviewing Season 17 in PvP. I know Dado does something similar for PvE, so I wanted to take a stab at PvP specifically. So I asked my Twitch chat, I am streaming right now, to help me come up with some bullet points that are the essence of Season 17, not necessarily like a historical recap. Again, it's just like you get off work, you load into a PvP game, what are the pros you notice, what are the cons you notice, and then I had a couple neutral things that I just liked that I couldn't really put anywhere else. So starting from the top in no particular order, all these are kind of tied together. So as I talk about maybe something at the top and I later make it to something in the middle, I might revisit the top because something is relevant again. So they're interconnected. Now let's go with it. Right at the top of pros, craftable S and A tier weapons. So what am I talking about? Like the Austringer hand cannon. If you were to have a friend who plays Destiny 2, you got them interested in Destiny 2 and they wanted to feel competent at PvP and have good gear, Austringer is a great hand cannon because there's an end goal. You don't just send them to an activity and say, see you in potentially 500 hours. They know exactly when they're getting it. At the very least, they could log in once a week to work towards an Austringer. And that's awesome. That's so healthy for PvP. Everybody on a level playing field. Moving on, flinch mitigation was updated to be tied to resilience. So the higher resilience stat you have, the less flinch that you receive. That is a huge change, and it made some archetypes of weapons able to combat hand cannons. I still think Ace of Spades is wild with the amount of flinch it causes, but for now I feel comfortable using a pulse rifle in hand cannon distance to duel a hand cannon, because otherwise I would be reintroduced to the ceiling in previous seasons. Another thing that changed, and you may not remember this, it feels like an eternity, but single ammo pickup from special bricks. Scavengers no longer work on specials. It feels like we always got one special ammo because I'm now used to this system, but I think that was a good change. In sixes, it feels a little weird to be going on streaks because sometimes you just can't pick up the special or someone else runs over it and yoinks it. And so it feels like I'm running around with only one primary weapon the entire game. So that is something worth noting. But I think in the competitive modes like Trials of Osiris, the one special ammo pickup feels really good. This is one that you might not remember. But in Season 16, the invisibility mechanics were absolutely killed. They started making it so that when you were invis, at the top left on your radar, you would ping red every 3 seconds no matter what you did. And what that caused people to do is they would throw on a shotgun and fly at you within those 3 seconds. So they were using invis as a gap closer, a special weapon jousting tool, instead of as radar manipulation. So what this change brought back, it resurrected invis. If you are crouching, you have 6 seconds of radar manipulation now. And that's huge for the invis playstyle. And I really do say playstyle because, like I said, last season they gutted it. It wasn't a playstyle anymore. It was just a special weapon jousting tool. And you're going to see a lot of the cons that I'm going to talk about today are about facilitating that very lame playstyle. So AE, aerial effectiveness. This is a system that the higher you get this AE stat, the more likely you are to see yellow numbers, precision hits when you aim at the head. There's a lot of convoluted accuracy aim assist cones that go into this, but all you need to know is the higher the AE stat, the more likely to see a yellow number. And so for the first time ever, if I were to use an exotic weapon, don't really have any in my inventory there, but if I were to throw on Thorn and jump in the air, before this season, you were not guaranteed to see a yellow number for shooting them in the face. Now, if I build into this enough, I will always see a yellow number, and that is amazing. Now, the obvious con that goes alongside this is that, well, now it's harder to have a consistent legendary weapon, and you would absolutely be right. So, AE, the whole system behind it, it got improved significantly this season. And I hope that they improve it even further in the future. We got extra perks on Crucible rank up this season, where if I were going for like a Sorrows versus auto rifle, instead of just having one perk in each column, I might have 3 perks for ranking up Crucible 3 times in this column and 2 perks in this column. It made getting those god rolls a lot easier since those weapons have 12 perk columns each. So now we have more build crafting options and vault space. I'm going to give you some examples here of build crafting options. We of course got new aspects and fragments that give various stat bonuses. And then something like Skyburner's energy weapon, it got a Scorch added to it. So if you're using a Scorch solar build, now Skyburners is something you can add to the build and really build into it. So let me give you an example of this build. You play Golden Gun Hunter with specifically the weighted throwing knife, and you tag them with Skyburner, then throw the throwing knife at them, and they will ignite. They will blow up like a nuclear bomb if you put all the correct perks on it. So that was something that wasn't an option and now is. There's a lot more examples, but that's just a very basic one I could come up with for sake of length of this video. Speaking of Scorch Ignitions, they are basically like Arc Web, and if you remember why Arc Web was always so good in Destiny, it's because it prevents globbing. It punishes people for standing shoulder to shoulder. The ignition mechanic on Solar is the same thing. I think Hunter can activate it the easiest with Caliban's Hand, but Warlock can activate it too with Incendiary Nade plus Celestial Fire. So you can blow up groups of people for standing shoulder to shoulder. An example when this is going to come up is a lot of people really hate when Titans camp together shoulder to shoulder with the Hoarfrost exotic or Heart of Inmost Light. They're Behemoth Titans just farming overshields and putting up ice walls, or people standing in a Well of Radiance. You now have a counter to that, like a very soft counter, where if you build into ignitions, it's just like Arc Web. Blow their ass up for standing next to each other. Next pro is 180 RPM hand cannons and the Radiant interaction. I'm actually going to log on to my... Never mind, I'm not going to log onto my Hunter. I can just show you in collections. Hunter has an exotic boot called the Frosties, where if you sprint, you get your cooldowns faster. And so one of the cooldowns is your dodge regeneration. Hunter has a new dodge called Acrobat Dodge that gives you Radiant for free. Radiant is a 10% boost to damage. And that makes a big difference with 180 RPM hand cannons, where outside of 10 resilience, they can 3-tap. So if someone isn't running 10 resilience, that is a green light to throw this build on and run the lobby with 180 RPM hand cannons. So the fact that that's possible is really cool to me. I like that a lot. It also gives more reason to use Malfeasance as a team, because even if you're playing against people who are 10 resilience, punching that much harder absolutely makes a difference. Next thing I want to talk about is Iron Banner and Rift. Rift, the new objective game mode, was so much fun the second time it appeared. The first time it appeared, it was a buggy mess and wasn't that nice as a result. They also removed power level in Iron Banner, which makes it accessible to more people. And then they also added a new map. This was Disjunction. I think it plays awesome for Rift. I think it plays interesting for survival. I actually really like it in survival. But where I don't like it is everywhere else. In sixes, it feels like I'm running too far to get back to the action. And in Rumble, I can't find gunfights. I pretty much have to stay locked in a corner. And I only interact with maybe 2 or 3 people if I'm playing to win. Next one, moving along. The Last Word nerf was a fair pass. It got nerfed by about 3 meters. There was a bug with it where it did more damage, but let's just pretend that didn't happen. My fear was that it was going to become unusable on mouse and keyboard and just usable on controller instead of competitive on controller. Glad to say that's not the case. Still very usable on mouse and keyboard and still very competitive on controller. Maybe it needs another pass, but the point is, this wasn't too much. It was just right, that Goldilocks level of a nerf. Finally, Sniper Snapshot nerf. And then snipers were also buffed in handling. And so I think this was a fair pass too, because while Snapshot is still the go-to perk on sniper rifles, something like Cloud Strike, that I actually have this in my inventory. Cloud Strike wasn't an option for me in previous seasons because it did not have Snapshot. But now that the base handling is a little bit faster aiming down sights, and Snapshot is a little bit slower, they're closer together, now Cloud Strike is an option. The risk is worth the reward. The risk of aiming down sights slower is worth the reward of potential collaterals. Moving on. Now let's talk about the cons, as you probably just skipped to this part of the video. Classy Restoration, the prevalence of healing grenades, Lorelei Splendor, and the combination of all three was unfun to play against because it created this reliance on special weapons, and pretty much since primary weapons were not getting the job done, you just fly at each other with special weapons to guarantee the final blow because there's no point in shooting at somebody if they out-heal all your damage. That's how the season felt in a nutshell. And so this created a borderline almost necessity of alt win condition weapons like Hawkmoon, No Time to Explain, not Succession. It's a scout rifle. What's it called? Symmetry. There you go. Started with an S. Yeah, these alt win condition weapons, Teraba, maybe the greatest example. No Time to Explain is definitely the MVP of this season. It's a little out of band with its strength. Its time to kill is lightning fast, covers all the ranges, still very accurate point blank, feels easy to aim at point blank even. So that's why it came up so much. But the real reason it came up so much is because if you have to shoot multiple bursts into somebody anyway to kill them, you might as well get the little shoulder turret anyway. And so overall, the Classy Restoration, Void 3.0 passed. The ability to gunplay ratio just isn't there right now. It feels like if the ability is in play, it's either to throw your kit at somebody and blow them up with like Caliban's hand, or to make you so tanky and survivable that you can fly at someone with a special weapon. Which brings me to the next con, unbalanced special weapons. Let's talk about pellet shotguns. In my opinion, pellet shotguns are maybe where special weapons are supposed to be, and everything else is just a little stronger. Pellets are feeling inconsistent as a result. And I'm also going to say Templar Farm here. The Templar Farm used to be the go-to way to easily get spoils, which would lead people to the Found Verdict shotgun. I'm going to show you this in the item manager here. Found Verdict should be on one of these characters. Let's just search it. Not everybody has access to this beast of a shotgun. If you can get the range stat to about 60 and then also have an opening shot on top of it, you're going to notice that this one is not like the others. This is a very consistent lethal shotgun. I'm not running it this season though because of the strength of Bubble Titans. I'll get to that later. So anyway, the special weapons, shotguns are just falling behind everything else. And I think the move is everything else should be like pellet shotguns, not pellet shotguns be just the primary weapon. They're special for a reason. They shouldn't be the first idea in a gunfight. Speaking of primaries now, primary range bands. Let's talk about SMG and autos and how SMGs almost feel like a better pick than auto rifles in the given ranges. And then also autos versus pulses on those farther out ranges. Pulses just do it better, both far and close. Then we're talking overall. Damage fall-offs and floors. So in a weird sort of way, because I just talked about healing and abilities, facilitating flying at people in special weapon jousting, you feel like you have to have a special weapon to compete, which means that you only have one primary to cover one hyper-specific range. I feel like either the fall-off or the floor is a little too strict to the point where I have to have a shotgun to check a corner or a sniper to challenge a lane. If I have a hand cannon per se, and I try to fight a scout rifle, I'm only doing like 12 damage. I know a scout is supposed to be good at a very far distance, but there's not a ghost of a chance of a hand cannon competing. I would like it to where my opponent doesn't have to totally fumble the back. Actually, I just think it's impossible for a hand cannon to win a scout distance. It shouldn't be impossible. There should be a possibility. It shouldn't be easy, but there should be a possibility. And I think the answer is to reevaluate the exact fall off and floor of archetypes. And that could help if we revisit like the 180 RPM and unused archetypes. Maybe this is where they should differ from each other. if you're going to have a more forgiving fall off and floor, maybe the TTK is what gets hit. I'm just spitballing here. In similar regards, maps not making sense with the mode. I don't like seeing disjunction and rumble, and I'm leaving a lot of longer range maps because of this. It's hard to pop off in 6s when I'm pushed towards double primary, but lobby balancing makes me have a special weapon anyway, and then at some point I don't have any ammo and I'm pretty much just playing the game with a hand cannon. It feels off. FOMO loadouts in the Trials loot rotation. So let's talk about FOMO loadouts. What if you didn't have an Igneous Hammer, but Igneous Hammer was the key to making a very fun Solar 3.0 loadout? Well, tough shit. Gotta wait until Igneous Hammer comes back. I don't like saying that to a new friend that's booting up Destiny for the first time. I don't like saying, oh, Igneous Hammer might come back in a couple seasons, just gotta be patient. Why can't they just get Igneous Hammer? That would be wonderful. There needs to be some sort of method in Destiny 2 that could get old weapons and old gear. Also, Bungie has to accept that some people have the old gear and either go back and nerf the old gear or make it accessible. It's not fair that I have perfect anti-OPs and other people don't in the SMG slot, especially when Iron Banner doesn't have a power level enabled. I could just use a better SMG than someone and they will never get one. Let that sink in. They will never have one of these unless Bungie does something about it. Glaives, not going to spend too long here. They are the best special weapon, but top players probably won't use them because of their slight inconsistency issues. But they are the most powerful. If someone has the glaive shield up, there is no counterplay. You could try to stasis, you could try to wither horde or divinity or something, but like overall, two equally skilled players, the glaive user is winning. Okay, Omnioculus. It was really popular this season because it was a double whammy. It combined radar manip with special weapon jousting. And then since pellet shotguns were the weakest special weapon, people just used Lord of Wolves anyway because it was just a more consistent shotgun. In other words, it was the terrible perk but always on in that like 10 meter distance. Also, Lorentz Driver. You can't flinch it, and normally it accompanied an Omni Lord of Wolves team. So again, special weapon jousting, no one thinks of using a primary. Lead with Lord of Wolves or Lorentz. I put Bubble Titan strong here because it doesn't matter what playlist you're in, Bubble Titan has an impact, and it especially had an impact in Trials of Osiris elimination and especially zone control. The way that top level games are played, and you can look at all the Season 17 footage from all your favorite content creators, at least one game came down to this. If the Omni Lord of Wolves stuff isn't working, all you do is just sit behind a barricade and wait on the super. And all that gunplay, all that ability play, all that outplaying each other comes down to just punching each other in a bubble. Not really entertaining gunplay. And I'm going to put the a mention to enhance 1-2 punch the perk. This is something I like. I don't know if it's a pro or con because I don't know where Bubble's supposed to sit in the power scaling here. But Bubble doesn't really have any counterplay. The only soft counterplay is having 1-2 punch or stasis and a team to just fly into the bubble. So, yeah, I guess more of a comment here. I'm going to move on. Solar Titan is very weak without Lorelei. Lorelei carries this shit. Part of what makes Solar Titan weak compared to the Warlock and Hunter Solar 3.0 is that Solar Titan requires a kill for a perk activation, whereas Warlock and Hunter don't. They just eat a grenade or something and they get a bonus. Titan has to get a kill for a sunspot. The Consecration melee is really good, but it eats your melee bind of Shoulder Charge or the Throwing Hammer, so you can't decide what is the right tool for the situation. It just always defaults to Consecration, and even then, the wind up on it is so predictable the top level players just Stompy jump out of the way. So I hope Solar Titan gets another pass in the future. At least to scale to something like Bubble Titan. Is Bubble Titan too strong, or is Solar Titan too weak? These are the questions I don't know, which is why I said it's like a comment, and I'm moving on. Heat Rises Healing. I guess this goes hand in hand again. If Bubble Titan is this strong, maybe Heat Rises Healing makes sense here. But it's kind of weird to have already one of the strongest builds in Destiny, which is the Top Tree Dawnblade, suddenly get a bonus for doing something already beneficial. Popping Heat Rises is already a benefit. You're getting AE and the ability to float off a map inaccessible to any other class. You just beat a super because you're floating off map and they just can't follow you there. And so not only that, but you're going to heal on top of that and heal your teammates. If they wanted to refine the system more and maybe have like a healing grenade do this, but not a firebolt grenade, and then change the healing grenade cooldown to be really long since it's such a pain point anyway, that makes sense to me. Give Heat Rises healing if you're going to choose the healing grenade. Sure. But everything else, I don't know about that. But we will see as we see Arc 3.0 and then have Bungie reevaluate Bubble Titan. It's all about relative power balance, right? If we consider the release of Stasis as S tier and maybe this current iteration of Bubble Titan as A tier, I don't know what Bungie's target is. I don't know. If Solar Titan right now is C tier, is Solar Titan the target? Is Bubble Titan the target? Or is Launch Stasis the target? That's what I'm getting at. It's all about relative balance here. So I can more comment on these than give a prescription to Bungie on what to do. I don't know yet because I don't know what their goal is. Let's talk about AE builds. I don't think they're there yet. I'm going to put snipers and no backup plans as an example. For a sniper to be consistent in the air, it has to have two things. It has to have 100 AE and 100 range stat. So let's look at the only gun in the sandbox that can do that by itself without a build. It's the Eye of Soul. So here's how it accomplishes it. In a recent change, they made extended mag add plus 10 airborne effectiveness. So now we're at 15. This is the only sniper that has a base 5 airborne effectiveness. Every other snipe is below 5. So it cannot get to 100. Check this out. AE goes to plus 30. Now we're at the crucial number for Heat Rises on the Warlock, Solar Dawnblade or whatever, to add plus 70 to it whenever it consumes its grenade. So 70 plus 30, 100. So now that I'm at 100, if I aim at someone's forehead, it should be a precision kill. But there are some variables that come into that. If I'm really fucking far away to the point where the aim assist isn't at its full strength, because the way it's designed, it's a cone or whatever, there is a chance that my bullet does not correct to the head. How can I make sure that it's pinpoint? The range stat needs to be 100 so that it is as pinpoint as possible. So now, look at how I get this. Pretty much every perk has to be specific to have a no excuses AE build. Opening shot adds 25 range. So now I have 100 range and 100 airborne effectiveness without any other build crafting. This is the only gun in the game that can do it, and you have to sacrifice everything about the gun in order to do it. Is that too much for in-air sniping? I think it might be. Here's the other alternative. Let's say that you're okay with being really far out of range and having the bullet not count as a yellow number. Well, then what you do is you wear Astrosight Verse on the Warlock right here because it gives plus 30 airborne effectiveness. I know it seems kind of weird running the grape helmet. Oh, I'm sorry, Vanilla. I was recording a video. I'm going to leave here for a sec.
Oh, shit.
Shout out to Vanilla, homie. I'm not editing that out. I'm too tired. I need a... So why am I recording when I'm this tired? Because I need to fix the sleep schedule so that I get the proper amount of rest for the raid and I don't oversleep my alarm. So I'm taking the L right now. So it seems kind of weird to wear the Blink exotic on Dawnblade, but it makes sense because you can equip something like Cloud Strike and have 100 AE. The only negative is that your range isn't 100. So if you're at those extreme distances and your crosshairs on their head, sorry, you might fucking miss. That's just the L you take for not running 100 range. Again, I think that's a little too specific. I think there should be more ways to build into it. And yes, they are acknowledging that. They are working towards that. And I get it. Like, look at this. Ember of Tempering. Solar Weapon Final Blows grant you and your allies increased recovery for a short time. And while it's active, your weapons have increased airborne effectiveness. This makes sense if I'm maining an Igneous Hammer. This should just make it feel better to use, not enable a playstyle. There is no way to have Ember of Tempering like enable a precision hit from a shotgun. It's just never going to happen. And this isn't going to be the difference maker between a snipe hitting a yellow number or not. It's either you're using Heat Rises and Astrocyte Verse or you're not. You either have ISO or you don't. The next example I want to give is no backup plans. I think this gives, what, plus 30 AE to shotguns? That doesn't make any difference. You're not going to notice a difference between plus 30 AE shotgun or not on a pellet. And you're certainly not going to notice it on a slug. I was running around here on stream with Astrocyte Verse and Chaperone. And I believe that on shotgun specifically, slug shotgun specifically, it gets half of the aim assist when you're at 100 AE. And a half aim assist Chaperone does not shoot refrigerators anymore. You have to be very pinpoint. No backup plans does not get you to 100. So you're just not going to hit the headshot. I promise you. You're not hitting the headshot with no backup plans. Not going to happen. So I have to wonder, why does it even give an AE bonus to begin with if there's no way in hell that any teammate buff or any personal buff is going to get you to hitting yellow numbers with a Chaperone? So I want to mention that. We are the most specific that we can possibly get with shotguns, and yet it doesn't make a tangible difference. Okay, moving on. Sniping through flinch. This is a quick one. This has been there since the beginning. You shoot at a sniper, you're still domed. It sucks. Doesn't matter if they're the greatest sniper in the world or the worst. It could still happen. Why does flinch you towards the target? That type of thing. Next bullet point. Iron Banner frequency. We only had it twice this season. It didn't feel like enough. Final con. And this is me being extra nitpicky here, kind of community sentiment, have to mention this one. Stompees gets a minus 50 to AE, but Ophidians get a plus 10. Also, melee lunge desync. I'm very worried about that with Arc 3.0. But it's almost impossible to hit a target once they start melee lunging, especially from like an Ophidian enhanced range or Synthesep range. It's just not really a consistent change. And I almost feel like they're going to go back and change the Stompy number in the future to make build crafting realistic with it. We will see. But if nothing's changing with Stompees, then I would like to talk about... I'm going to actually load into something here, because I'm going to need to show you snap skating in a second. But you know that feeling when you jump really high in the air and then hit the ground? And if you're aiming down sights, your character will like look at the floor and they'll have like that aim punch when they hit the floor. I would almost like for that to go, considering we're like space gods, or rather we're guardians of the light that kill space gods. And yet we can't just jump a couple feet. Just can't aim anymore. I'm going to try to show you what I'm talking about here. I'm going to aim at this tree stump when I hit the floor. Oh, now I'm looking at the ground. If Stompees are going to have minus 50 AE and their whole shtick is about jumping, then can Stompees at least get the pass to not have to look at the floor from jumping? Food for thought. Definitely a con here, just inconsistency across the system. So finally, let's talk about some things that I like that aren't necessarily a pro or con, because there's more that goes into it. Gunpowder gamble on the Hunter. I'm not going to switch to Hunter, but it's essentially throwing a trip mine in the air and shooting it, except they turned it into an ability that's a lot easier to activate, but it only has one fragment slot. So while it is a very fun and cool aspect, it doesn't seem as competitive as the other two, considering the amount of fragments that they give and also the bonuses. So worth mentioning. I think it's the coolest part of the season, in my opinion. Such a fun ability. I will almost always run that if it's not a serious scenario, but even if it's a serious scenario, I'm probably running it anyway, just because it's cool. Enhanced 1-2 punch. It gives you an ability to fight supers and bubbles, and that alone is worth it to me. It may not be competitive in like a scrim setting or the first couple rounds of trials. People also just switch from their found verdict to the shotgun anyway, but the fact that it exists is awesome. Finally, essence of the season. Snap slide canceling is OP, but fun. I'm going to exit this because I don't need this anymore. So what is snap canceling? It is canceling your slide with hitting the super button and then jumping out of it. If you're on M&K, this is what happens when you hit your super button when you don't have a super. It just melees. An artifact of that is if I slide, it cancels out of the slide. I don't have to finish the animation. And while this doesn't seem advantageous at first, if you start practicing it, you might realize why it's this strong. So if this stump is flying at me with a shotgun, I can slide away, turn back around, shoot them, cancel my slide, and drift backwards with an Icarus dash. And I can do it faster before they maybe even pull the trigger. So if you really practice it, you can exaggerate the slide momentum. Just like that. It doesn't seem like it's advantageous, but in an FPS game, milliseconds matter. The real big advantage here is if I fly at this stump, I don't look like my normal character animation. I look like Spider-Man just landing from web slinging. I look like I am Oddjob from GoldenEye. I am crouched in the air as I fly towards them. So I am very difficult to hit, and they're not expecting me to look like Oddjob in the air. So they're going to miss their shot. That's what's fucked up about this. So if I fly at the stump with my shotgun, they're not going to be able to hit me. Do I even have a shotgun on right now? Let's go grab the found verdict. Don't need this anymore. Okay. If I do that, they're not hitting me because I'm crouched in the air. So I do think this is a really cool movement mechanic. If Bungie can create an ability that is this but comes at some sort of cost or drains your super meter or something, I'd be all about it. Without the jank animation, of course. So another thing that I don't know if it's exactly a con, but it ain't a pro either. And now I can exit the desktop and play some PSO until the stream. And until the reset. By the way, this is pretty cool. Did a lot of season prep today. Did a lot of farming. Got 21 treasure keys. Maybe there is a craftable BXR today. I'm so excited. I talked about that in the season prep video yesterday. But this is the end result. This is what I got today. Got the grenade launcher. With chill clip, auto-loading, and blinding. No concussion. Did some testing on concussion, by the way, in case you want to know. Concussion does not stop the sprint animation, but chill clip does. Having both together isn't necessarily a bonus, but it is funny. What concussion does is it stops. Concussion doesn't stop. It slows the sprint animation to almost a standstill, but they're still sprinting. This can be proven by using Mark 44 stand-asides, getting an overshield, and then shooting at them with concussion. They still keep the overshield, which means the sprint is still active. They can also shoulder charge out of a concussion nade. So, long story short, concussion nades are kind of shit in PvP. But Bungie knew that, and that's why they're removing them. But I still think they could be buffed to be usable in the future. More as a utility thing, kind of like blinding. I also went for a power grenade launcher because Crowd Pleaser is the only obtainable grenade launcher that is easily obtainable with threat detector. It's an adaptive frame, which is a good power weapon, has proxy grenades, which is a good perk on a power weapon, and it has a very clean sight. I went for this today because I am starting to use the grenade launcher sight to line up Wither Horde, stasis turrets, stasis grenades, that type of thing on maps, to set up like Counter-Strike style utility usage, and it is really fun. If Arc 3.0 gets out of hand, I am going to sit in a private match and not let Arc 3.0 play the game. I'm going to do this by having a Discord where people find angles with these and submits it on that Discord. And we're all going to learn as a community and get really good at throwing grenades over the map. So I think Crowd Pleaser is the grenade launcher for that. It's an experiment right now, but as I get better at this and as I learn exactly what I'm going to do, I will let you know the results of that experiment. I think that's everything. So Season 17 review, we had some ups, we had some downs. Once we're through Arc 3.0, I think Destiny is going to be in a really good state. So if you have left the game and are just checking in on this video, I think your cue to join Destiny 2 full force again is after this next season. Season 19 is probably going to be a goated PvP season, for sure. All right, see you all on the next one.